So Adam spoke about the importance of generosity. I am going to ask for your grace and generosity for the next 10 or 12 minutes. And here's why. Because I typically run my speeches by my 2 teenage sons before I give them. They tell me what's boring, and I rewrite. Lots. This week, they refused. I have one son who's going to college next week, so he will be with one of yes. All kinds of emotions about that. And my 15-year-old, this is not a lie, said to me, I have heard all your stories. I'm like, I grow. I have new stories. He's like, I don't believe you. So I had a very kind and generous Uber driver who, this is not a joke, this is also true, who listened to my speech on the way in. He did tell me only Urdu. I'm like, it's going to sound better. This is better, you know. Gave me the thumbs up as I finished. So you will be the first set of people hearing this set of news stories. So as we ask for your generosity and grace over the course of the next 3 days, you can practice it over the next 12 minutes. Chords of democracy. 1. When I was a student in England 25 years ago, I fell in love with a novel named White Teeth. It was written by a woman named Zadie Smith, and I thought it perfectly captured the music of pluralism. She basically fictionalized the motley crew of friends, colleagues, and classmates she had in the northwest of London neighborhood she grew up in. It's a properly diverse neighborhood. Rich and poor, middle class and working class, long-time white English Anglicans and atheists, newer communities of Jamaican evangelicals, Indian Hindus, Pakistani Muslims, Chinese Buddhists, Italian Catholics, Polish Jews. From her perch in a council estate, which is the British version of a housing project, that's where Zadie Smith was raised, she wrote about the friendships and the foibles and the feuds, the romances and the reconciliations of this set of people. I think my favorite scene took place on a playground. Here's how Zadie Smith describes it. It is only this late in the day that you can walk into a playground and watch Isaac Leung by the fish pond, Danny Rahman in the football cage, Kwang O'Rourke bouncing a basketball, and Irie Jones humming a tune. Children with first and last names on a direct collision course. My research was in London, and every time I passed the playground, I looked for those characters. I looked for those kids whose different backgrounds and whose identities should have been at war with each other, even internally, and yet had come together to form the most precious of human creations, a community. Here's how Zadie Smith describes that signal achievement in human civilization. We have finally slipped into each other's lives with reasonable comfort. White Teeth was a blockbuster. Think of it as the Hamilton of the era. Zadie Smith becomes a global figure at like 24 years old. I was 24 reading it. She was 24 when she published it. She finds herself taking up writing fellowships and university positions around the world for the next 15, 16 years. Part 2. In 2016, Zadie Smith returns to the old neighborhood. She comes to care for a family member who has grown very ill. And one of the first things she notices is that the playground that she immortalizes in White Teeth has a new structure around it. A fence, not just with metal bars, but also bamboo slats in between those metal bars, so nobody can see from the inside out, and nobody can see from the outside in. Zadie Smith starts to see fences all around her old neighborhood. In fact, everywhere in London, around the new mansions that have gone up, around the public schools, around the mosques and the synagogues, and even some of the churches. Actual physical barriers. But there's other fences that Zadie Smith notices. In 2016, we have a moment of division in the United States. In Britain, they have a moment of division there. It's known as Brexit. And Brexit causes, or perhaps reveals, an invisible fence. The fence that Zadie Smith calls of right opinion. Too tall to climb over, too thick to see through, sometimes electrified. So easy to caricature the people on the other side, so hard to actually talk to them. She writes in this essay called Fences, a Brexit Diary, about this scene that was so fraught with tension that it could have been out of a novel, but it actually happens to her in real life. And it takes place on that very playground that she grew up in as a child and that she writes about in White Teeth. She's now a mother, and she's taking her young daughter to this playground. And this little girl finds herself enamored of this little boy, or maybe it's the other way around. In any case, they're locked in and they're playing together. And Zadie Smith knows you got to find the other parent and you got to arrange a play date. So she kind of looks around this playground and she identifies the parent of this little boy that her little girl is enamored of as this white working class mom who's 15 years younger than her. And Zadie Smith thinks to herself, I need to find the words to ask her for a play date between our kids. And the next sentences in this essay, like I said, is that you can just see the scene. Zadie Smith is fumbling for the words. She's imagining all of the views that this woman has. Zadie's mom, this Jamaican woman, she's been told not long ago, not long after the Brexit vote, well, you are going to have to go home now. She's imagining all of these things that this woman is thinking. And they're putting their children in the strollers. And they're walking their kids up the hill, and Zadie Smith is looking for the language. And finally, they come to their respective developments. And Zadie Smith watches this woman turn left into the council estate that she was raised in. And this woman watches Zadie Smith turn right into the new development with big mansions. The one with the black door is the one that Zadie Smith walks into. And the last thing that Zadie Smith feels is the withering look that this woman gives to her. You are one of those. You live in the rich neighborhood. Playdate didn't happen. Zadie Smith, the great novelist of pluralist community, couldn't find the language to climb over or see through the electric fence of right opinion and caricature. 3, I'm not leaving you here, trust me. I'm not leaving you in the despondent place. This is the middle of the talk. Okay. What I want to do is give you a sense of how hard this is. I mean, like literally, the people who are best in the world at talking about and to people of different backgrounds cannot figure out how to talk to those folks on the playground for a play date between their kids who are getting along. That is how hard this is. That is what we have signed up for. That is what we have signed up for. And part of what I love about Zadie Smith is she's not just going to let a problem sit. She's going to give us a way forward. And she does it in the way writers do. She changes the metaphor. She writes in an essay 6 months later, an essay called On Optimism and Despair. So maybe we don't think of fences. Maybe we think of music. Maybe we understand ourselves as complex musical scores. And the job of the conductor, whether you're an actual conductor in an orchestra, or you're a band leader, or you're a novelist, or you're a civic leader like us, the job of the conductor is to tease out the melodies of the internal pluralism within all of us and the pluralism amongst all of us, so that your expression and your expression and your expression can, at least on some things, be a symphony. And in this way, Zadie Smith connects herself, I'm pretty sure she knew what she was doing, to the pioneers of the concept of cultural pluralism. Some of those pioneers lived and worked here 110 years before Zadie Smith was writing her novels. Jane Addams and John Dewey and Elaine Locke and Horace Callan and John Courtney Murray, the set of people who invent the paradigm, the concept of cultural pluralism, that our identities have value, that the collective of those identities, that diversity, has value, that is actually what is definitional in a democracy, people bringing those diverse identities to the public square. But it is not without challenge, because diversity is not just the differences you like. It brings conflict, and that is why you need pluralism leaders. Not to pretend the conflict doesn't exist, not to allay it, but to say there is another possibility as well. There is another possibility as well. Horace Callan calls it the symphony of civilizations. And John Dewey's the one that says, it's easy to bring instruments to the stage. It is hard to get them to play well together. Part of what I find remarkable about what those early pioneers of cultural pluralism did is they were making their case in the face of two other dominant paradigms. Paradigm number one was the melting pot. Put your identity away. Melt it into the same bland goo that everybody else is. And the other paradigm was Culture Klux Klan. We are going to destroy your identity. We are coming for you. Don't put it away, because we actually want to squeeze it out of you. And this group of people, John Dewey and Jane Addams and Horace Callan, they're articulating something different. We are their heirs. We are their heirs. That's the commitment we make. The skills we're building here, the courage we are giving to one another. We sign up for civic leadership in a diverse democracy. We are the people that others can count on to build pluralism. By the way, I want to say something. Your opinion is probably right. You get to keep that. Your view of the world, you get to keep that. The disagreement that you're going to have, it's significant. It's a part of this thing. And yet, we cannot live in a world in which two parents whose kids are playing on a playground do not have the language to take the next step. We cannot live in a world in which some of our disagreements cancel out every opportunity for cooperation. That's what we do here. That's what we cultivate, pluralism. So we see people as complex musical scores, and we coax out the melodies, and we encourage each other to sing along. And whatever side of the fence of right opinion you are on, you can actually start to hear the similar melodies, the chord changes, the verses, on the other side of the fence. And maybe you come a little closer. And here's the thing about invisible fences. We've imagined them. And we can unimagine them. We have imagined them, and we can unimagine them with a little help from our friends. There's no them, there's only us. We are playing together the chords of pluralism, the chords of democracy. Thank you for being with us.